In episode number 245, we cover Tom Hardy's casting as Venom. We were both very much against this movie. Has this changed?
We also have the DC superhero girls moving from, or actually replicating themselves from online and over to Cartoon Network, going over to your small screen.
And our comic book review this week is Flash number 22. This is the final installation of The Button.
At the very end of the podcast, we're going to have a spoiler review of Alien Covenant, Ridley Scott's latest addition into the Prometheus universe.
All of this and much more on today's show. Hello and welcome to the Reasons I'm Broke podcast, bringing you the reasons we're broke, ranging from comics, movies, TV, video games, and more. I'm Kelly.
And I'm Daniel.
And for those of you joining us for the very first time, welcome. The way we format the show is first we start out with some news, covering all of those things I just mentioned, and we follow up with a comic book highlight of the week, and very special this week, all the way at the end, we have our Alien Covenant review.
Before we jump into the news this week, my child has grown even stronger.
Even stronger.
It is kicking even harder.
Even harder.
And it is leaving little imprints forever on the inside of your stomach. Little cave drawings of fists and kicks that will forever be a part of you.
That he is. So I think we mentioned last week that he had started kicking. And everything that I had read said, I will start to feel him kick, but it will still be a long time before you will be able to feel him kick, because he's just little butterfly wings on the inside of my stomach. Just little quickenings is what they're called.
Quickenings? What the hell is a quickening?
The hell if I know. So the very first time I felt him, I'm like, oh, there he is. And then the next day he was like, pa, super fist. So hard that even you could feel him.
That's true. And we even have this thing where if our dog Ace lays on your stomach now, he will just violently kick her little head
he does.
From inside the stomach.
And it doesn't matter. So my dog started sleeping with her head on my stomach, which she never did before. But now that I'm pregnant, she's like, oh, I have to protect this thing in your stomach because you are weak, mother. You don't even walk on 4 legs. You can't run that fast. So she sleeps with her head on my stomach, and he'll just kick her the whole time. Or when she leans against me for her morning snuggles, he just kicks her. When she rides on my lap to go places in the car, he just kicks her the whole time. If it's you, he's fine. He's like, yep, that's my father, hand on the stomach. But when it's a dog, he's like, yeah, dog.
Super calm with me. I don't know what it is. Like, whenever I have my hand on your stomach, he just stops kicking.
Yeah.
He knows it's his father. We're sharing, we are bonding, Kelly.
We're
bonding
go.
ahead
We're
of
bonding.
time.
So what's he doing with the dog, then?
Fighting the dog. It's his first nemesis, first enemy.
It's
It is the first threat.
I don't want them to be enemies.
Well, Ace jumped on your stomach from like the top of the couch.
Yeah,
so
she did do that.
Now Leo's like, no, fuck that. Whenever I hear the little collar, I'm immediately going to repel it with my kicks.
See, I like to pretend that he's really happy that his dog's there. He's like, yeah, let's go play, dog.
And that's the difference between you and I. That is the difference.
So is the dog to Leo what Frieza is to Vegeta?
To Goku. Goku's stronger.
Aww. Yeah, but Goku's kind of an asshole. Abandoning his kids for 10 years.
Yeah, well, and Ace can be an asshole too.
That's why she's Frieza.
And back then, Vegeta was an even bigger asshole than Goku.
Yeah, but he was a cool asshole.
We're not talking about cool here. We're talking about evil.
Vegeta was just Goku was a sneaky asshole. He made you think he was a good guy, and then, oh, no, I'm just gonna stay dead for 10 years. Fuck my kids.
We'll give you another baby update next week and see how Leo did at his first convention at MegaCon.
Yes. Oh, that's exciting.
And we're going to have the MegaCon review as well for episode 246. Let's go ahead and jump into the news this week.
Starting off with some comic books and Marvel. Marvel has announced their latest Star Wars comic book miniseries with Jedi of the Republic Mace Windu.
So this story takes place during the Clone Wars, as written by Matt Owens and Denise Cohen. I don't really know if Mace Windu needed a miniseries. It seems like Sam Jackson's attempt at the Star Wars Celebration event to have the audience clap and cheer and demand that his character be put into the new Star Wars movies, which people really did not, is a sign of the Star Wars fans not wanting any part of the prequels in the new movies. They just want the original trilogy referenced in episodes 6, 7, and 8.
Or they just don't care
or
about
7, 8, and 9, whatever.
they just don't care about Mace Windu.
That could be it. I mean, I know Sam Jackson has said that he, probably he could have lived because he's a Jedi, and he was one of the strongest ones. I think he was the strongest at the time before, Anakin Skywalker went over to the dark side and used both powers and all that. The Star Wars fan can correct me and will correct me, I'm sure. But but I think a more interesting story to tell with Mace Windu, aside from yet another Clone Wars book, would have been to either tell his origin, his training, kind of like they did with Darth Maul recently, and that sold like crazy, or pick a character that does sell like crazy, like fucking Boba Fett. When is that Boba Fett comic book going to come out on the Disney Marvel side?
When their sales start going down.
That's true. Save it until Star Wars starts dipping, then Boba Fett. Well, no, because then by then you could do Boba Fett 2, and Boba Fett 3, and Boba Fett 4. You can have 5 different ongoing Boba Fett books anytime the sales dip.
Star Wars Boba Fett.
There you go.
That's all it's going to be called. No, you got to save Boba Fett. He's like the ace in your back pocket where you got to be like, whatcha? Didn't see this, bitches.
Marvel's official description reads, quote, as Mace Windu, one of the Jedi's greatest warriors, leads a small unit of Jedi into battle shortly after the war begins, the Jedi must make peace with their new role or be lost to the violence around them.
Does that violence include giant gorillas and weird little things with 2 little arms?
Mace Windu could beat the shit out of King Kong.
Aw, poor King Kong.
If it had been Mace Windu going up against King Kong in that movie, this movie would have been over as soon as they entered that goddamn island.
If it had been Mace Windu against King Kong, he would have taken a fucking second to say, wait, guys, we're destroying his world. Let's not be assholes.
I don't know. I don't know if Mace Windu would have. Like, if King Kong was a legitimate threat, I think he could have just lightsabered his arms off.
Well, if he was a legitimate threat, but again, they were destroying King Kong's world. King Kong was just trying to protect the people.
The scientists putting those bombs down just to lure him out.
Assholes. So this is set to release August 2017. We will see how it sells.
So here's something interesting that Brian Michael Bendis brought up on another podcast, The Word Balloon. And I wanted to ask your opinion of this, Kelly. Brian said that the biggest threat to comic books wasn't necessarily the overshipping or the pricing, that those are issues, but that the overdoing of superhero television shows is what's going to affect comics on the negative side. His point of view is that people are getting their superhero fix every single week, multiple times a week, through the television shows, as opposed to before, where it was the comic books, where people were talking about the latest event in comics, as opposed to today, where instead of talking about the Buttons parts 1 through 4, people at work are talking about the latest episode of The Flash. Do you think that there are too many shows that are negatively affecting comics in the future?
No, I don't see it that way at all. I see the people who are watching these shows and getting their superhero fix from them are people who weren't reading the comic books anyway. So, yes, there's a lot of my coworkers that I can relate to, and they can say, oh, did you watch the latest episode of The Flash? And they were never going to pick up a comic book ever. But that then opens a door for me to go to them and say, oh, this was actually based off Flashpoint, which is a great book. If you like the characters, you should definitely pick it up because it's a great story. And now maybe I've pulled some people to the book.
Yeah, I do definitely agree with you. From the very beginning, what you said is that people that are watching these shows, that are talking about it, aren't picking up the comics as well. Now, granted, there are comic readers that are doing both, and, they're the bigger fans, or I don't know what you want to call them, like the more engrossed fans into this world of superheroes, because now they have this frosting of all of these superhero shows that for the most part are pretty well produced, and they have these excellent comic books that they can pick up every week. So you have the regular readers that are talking about the Button and the latest episode of The Flash and Gotham and, the Secret Empire event from Marvel. Whatever great comic books are going on today, they still have that as a companion or as the main thing, however they view it, with the television shows. One thing that Brian Michael Bendis did say is that the quality of comic books right now is at such a high level, And he put the current Doctor Strange run as the prime example. He said if the Doctor Strange book right now were to release back during the Frank Miller era of comics, it would also go down as one of the greatest runs in comic book history. But because we have so many creators outputting such great content, it gets lost among the other great comics of today's world.
Oh, what a terrible, terrible world we live in. There's too many good books.
Too much good content.
Too much to read.
I do agree that these books are going to be lost over time, but this era overall is going to be looked at as a golden age of comic books. Especially if you're reading independent comics. The Image Books, Boom Studios, Dark Horse, they're all putting out these awesome comic books that if you're not, if you're tired of the superhero side, you still have this whole world of independent books that you can indulge yourself in.
20 years from now, we'll be sitting around the campfire. I don't know why we resorted to campfires again, but we're sitting around going, remember when Saga started 20 years ago and it's still going on?
Or The Walking Dead.
Yeah, Walking Dead. But really, there's so much great content out. And that doesn't make the stories that they're telling any less impactful. At least I don't think so.
No,
sure, they don't go down in history as, this was the best story ever. But there's so many great things I can lead people to. I was just talking to somebody last night because we were talking about the DC movies. People at work still don't realize I'm a big Batman fan. And I'm sitting here going, where have you been?
Well, you're a girl, Kelly.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Aren't you going to be watching Wonder Woman?
I will, actually, because it is
I was right.
A great DC movie about a great DC character. So I was talking to somebody about Suicide Squad because they were concerned that Justice League is going to be just like BVS, and I said, well, because of the feedback they got and then what they got from Suicide Squad, I think they're going to make some changes, whatever going on. And he's like, yeah, and isn't Harley getting her own movie? And then I could say, well, yeah, Gotham City Sirens, which they already have a comic book about. And it was a great story. And if you like the character, you should check it out because it's a lot of fun and it'd be a great precursor to the movie.
Yes.
It gives me, but you can do the same thing, like I said, with the TV shows. It gives you a great opportunity as a comic book fan to pull other people into that as well.
Completely agree. The TV shows and the movies overall help the comic book world, then hurt it. And I see what he's saying, but I think he's a little more worried because he works in the industry and he has to keep the output at 100%. But the fact that people are coming into comic shops, and I have it all the time where they're like, I'm watching The Flash right now, and I saw Flashpoint. I heard there's a comic of that, and then you sell them the trade paperback. And then you sell them on the button right now because that connects into Flashpoint and into DC Rebirth and say, by the way, when you're finished with that, there's these 4 parts in which they go straight out of the Flashpoint universe. And they're like, oh yeah, I'll get all 4 then. So all of that is helping the comic book side, and it is helping comic book shops, which are also selling those toys based on the television shows, which are also selling those comics that the Flash movie eventually will be based on.
It goes on forever!
It does. So I thought it was interesting, the concern he had.
I can definitely see what he's saying, and it also puts more pressure on him because they have to keep pumping out these great stories. And yes, they absolutely should, or we'll be dropping them like, I don't know, Marvel titles or something. But they do. I can see where his concern is, but I don't feel that it's a concern that I have.
Onto the DC side. And the television screen, Warner Brothers Animation is producing an all-new DC Superhero Girls animated series set to debut on Cartoon Network next year.
And they made a brilliant move with this. The developer is Lauren Faust, who developed My Little Pony. She will not only be overseeing the stories for the show, but will be redesigning the characters.
More than half of the My Little Pony viewers are bronies. So you're going to have the bronies now watching the DC Superhero Girls. They're going to have to come up with a name for them. Something, it's got to be bro something, but good luck.
The DC Superhero Bronies.
And they're going to be watching this with Lauren Faust attached. Back in May 2016, DC Entertainment President Diane Nelson said that she expected the full DC Superhero Girls line to generate over $1 billion for Warner Brothers.
And I'm going to say it's still going to reach that. You have the YouTube Shorts, which we've had before, who pulled in that viewership of the kids who go straight to YouTube for their after-school shows. It happens. They like those short little bursts.
They're iPad watchers.
Right. And then we have all the merchandise that we've seen at Target.
Mm-hmm.
It's huge. Back before we found out what we were having,
Yep.
I was looking, I'm like, okay, if I have a little girl, she's going to get this DC superhero thing and this But the market is just, it's the perfect time for it because you're having little girls who, yes, you still have the little girls who want to be princesses and all that stuff. But then you have the little girls who want to be Wonder Woman because Wonder Woman is what's cool. And I see the t-shirts and the outfits and at where I work all the time with little girls wearing these things. And I'm like, cool, I want to wear those things.
But Kelly, it's not just for little girls. Little Leo can be a DC superhero girl if he wants to be.
He can, if he wants to be.
Don't forget, it's not just for girls.
No, he can. He can dress whatever he wants. He wants to be Wonder Woman, whatever. I actually had a friend who had a little boy, and he wanted to play Justice League all the time.
Okay.
And so his dad got to be Batman and his mom got to be Superman and he was Wonder Woman.
All right.
And that's just what he wanted to be. And his parents were cool. They're like, all right.
And that's the stuff you take pictures of to show them when they're adults.
To show their girlfriends or boyfriends when they grow up.
This is back when he was Wonder Woman. Really? They have like 7 Wonder Woman movies now. Yeah, and he was the very first.
He was our little Wonder Woman.
Our little...
But I think it's great that they're bringing this to Cartoon Network because now you're going to hit those kids who also, go to Cartoon Network for their shows or DVR everything and just watch it when they get home.
Yeah, I think it will also hit $1 billion. It'll be longer than I think Diane Nelson expected, but now they can dominate not only the DC YouTube side of the internet, but now you move it over to Cartoon Network. One of the things that I forgot to mention, she said, or the article said that they are going to redesign the DC superhero girls with Lauren Faust redesigning them. Now, I think she's going to do more of what happened with My Little Pony, in which they still look like the original My Little Ponies, but they're a little bit more updated to today's animation. And I think that's going to be the same with the DC superhero girls. You don't build a line or a brand and then within 5 years completely change the redesigns on them. I think she's adapting them more for television as opposed to online animation, which is actually different. The different programs, the different workers that you have, the quality goes way up when you put it on television next to the lineup of Samurai Jack and Steven Universe. You have to bring the animation up. And I think it's more like, maybe this is a bad example, but the Teen Titans. They kept the same costume designs when they did the Teen Titans Go. Granted, they were more chibi versions of it, but I think that matched more the humor of the television show. And I think something similar will happen with the DC superhero girls.
Right. This definitely isn't going to be Batman the Animated Series Season 4.
Exactly.
Where Scarecrow became this big thing with a noose around his neck and Joker got little black dot eyes.
Where you had Bruce Timm redesign all of them.
Yes. Oh, Bruce Timm. The woman got like no waist.
Yeah, and then Poison Ivy looked really weird. Like she was more elven than human. And a lot of people say they actually like that version of Scarecrow the best out of all of them. I still like the one from Batman TMNT Adventures, where it's like that weird snaggletooth one and the giant jaw and the big straw hat. That scared me more as a kid than the noose one or the balloon head design from the first episode.
You didn't like balloon head?
I had no problem with it. I wasn't scared by it. And I was a child watching it. I was like, Batman will stop him. But then the other thing where they would zoom in on the second design of Scarecrow with his fucking little teeth. I don't know why that stuck in my mind so much, but
his little snaggletooth, because he had an underbite, and that's scary.
Yeah, maybe that scared me, and then I don't know, like it just got to me. But
so should I wake you up in the middle of the night and you roll over and I'm like, "Arr," with my overbite?
Not a child anymore. Do that to Leo though. Let's see if let's see if he inherited my same fears.
No, I'm not going to do that to our child.
When we watch the animated series, we'll know for sure.
Yeah, you're going to scare the poor kid. He's going to be 6 months old. You're going to be like, watch this episode. Batman kills an alligator.
Look, if I can watch Batman the Animated Series, the Chucky movies, the Alien and Aliens
and
movies
we see what
as a
you
child,
became.
Thank you. I am such a handsome, smart man who has given you the greatest and purest of seeds that you're now carrying.
See, what we need to do is show him the Sewer King episode and tell him if you don't listen, Sewer King's gonna come and take you away.
Even he won't be scared of no Sewer King.
No, nobody's scared of the Sewer King.
Those kids could have left at any time. The Sewer King's not gonna do shit.
But he had those big alligators.
Yeah, that's true. But he's gonna be a Florida boy. He's not going to be scared of no Florida.
He's
no alligators.
Like, growing up wrestling alligators.
There's bigger alligators in Florida, bigger than Gotham City's alligators.
Yeah.
Makes Killer Croc look like a punk.
Our poor child.
It's going to be well raised. So a few weeks back, we talked about our lack of excitement about Venom. I think the next time we were going to talk about it was maybe when the first trailer released, because I had no interest. I didn't think that they should make the Venom story, because what story can you tell with Venom, right? That was our big argument. Until the day, and I was changed completely.
You saw the light. You saw salvation.
I saw salvation when I saw salvation. His name, Kelly, is Tom Hardy.
Tom Hardy is the Jesus of the Venom movie.
He is going to be what cements the Venom character for Sony Pictures as a cinema addition to the world of superheroes. Sony Pictures recently tweeted an image of Tom Hardy wearing a Venom t-shirt with the following.
Quote, Tom Hardy is Eddie Brock in Venom, the upcoming film from Sony's Marvel Universe, releasing October 5th, 2018. Production starts this fall. End quote.
In case you want to see that tweet, it's from @SonyPictures. And the director to Venom will be Zombieland's Ruben Fleischer.
So they changed your mind with Tom Hardy.
Absolutely. That guy can play anyone. And I'm going to go see his movie. I mean, after I saw Bronson, it was already like, fucking yes, he is an amazing actor where he's fighting men naked with his dick hanging out.
His dingle flapping all over the place.
It was such an art. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I have a question about that scene, though. So you always said that if you were fighting somebody and you just dropped your pants, they would run away.
Yes.
So why didn't these men run away when he was fighting them naked?
It's been a couple of years since I've seen this, but it's not like he just pulled his pants down and started fighting them. I think they were trying to change him into a different uniform, and he said, fuck this, I'm going to fight. He was a crazy guy. He was very violent. It's also a movie, Kelly. It's
not real life.
Like, if there's a fight, if it breaks down, and you just strip down naked, the other person's not going to fight you. They're going to be more confused and a little bit scared.
Well, I feel like that should have happened in the movie, though. They want me to believe it's real, right?
Yeah, but you gotta put in some fantasy every now and again, because it is still a movie. It's not a documentary of Bronson.
They put in his dingle. There was the fantasy. There was for us all.
Maybe he should play Dr. Manhattan when they reboot Watchmen.
Yeah.
He's willing to go naked, just fucking paint him in blue like Yondu.
Wasn't he painted gold in Bronson too? Or did I just make that up because it's Bronson and I think bronze?
Yeah, I think you definitely made that up.
I thought there was like some filter or something. He was a different color.
Can this movie exist without the Disney Spider-Man universe? That's the very first thing that fanboys jumped on. Because anything Sony does without Disney, they're immediately going to be against. You've ruined Spider-Man. Okay, so the first 3 movies that made a shit ton of money, yeah, they're no good with Spider-Man. They made one that was okay with the first one, the second one that wasn't as well received. So in the end, they've had a pretty good track record with Spider-Man. Mm-hmm. But no, they suddenly can't handle Spider-Man. But with Venom, he is so interwoven into the Spider-Man story. Do you think he can stand as a standalone compared to the Disney Spider-Man series? Do you have a new Spider-Man in the Sony universe? Or do you do what I think they should do, ignore the Spider-Man mythos, start the Venom story as if he already has the symbiote, and pit him up against Carnage?
Oh, they could do that. I was going to say they just make Eddie Brock cooler than he is and focus on his inner turmoil.
Do it like Lethal Protector. That was the comics in the 90s in which Venom had gained such popularity that they said, if he's going to have his own comic, he can't be a villain. Mm-hmm. But he also is not a good guy, because that would change the whole dynamic of why people like Venom. So instead, he was more like the Punisher, an anti-hero. He was going around killing, but he was killing criminals. He was cracking their skulls open and eating their brain, because that's what the Venom symbiote enjoyed. And then he said dialogue like, I'm back! And shit like that. And all kinds of cheesy fucking... He acts like the Mask in the comic books. He jokes around all the time. And that's the Venom that people don't remember.
You said this was the 90s, right?
Yes.
That's what we did in the 90s.
That's the Venom I want to see in this movie.
You want to see Tom Hardy act like that?
Yes. And have him act like he did in Bronson and put the Venom thing on him. Like, that's perfect. That is 90s Venom right there. That is 90s Venom, running around naked. And he was naked. He was naked in the 90s, because you'd have the symbiote, like, all over his body, and underneath, like, there'd be gaps, and you'd be like, he's naked under there. It's just the Venom symbiote.
Did he have, like, well-placed gaps, at least, so it wasn't, like, dingles
they didn't show his
out?
dingle, no. But it was just muscle. That's the other thing. It was the 90s, too, so he was just muscle upon muscle all over his legs and everywhere else.
When the symbiote was not on him, did he still have all those muscles?
He always had the symbiote on him, and yes, he did always have those muscles. So he worked out like crazy when he was in prison and when he was going up against trying to kill Peter Parker. But the Venom symbiote made him even stronger on top of that.
All right. Well, hey, it's Tom Hardy. He can get all them muscles.
I'm not saying that this movie's going to have a good story. I still don't think you can tell a good Venom story in the movie. But I do think it's going to be very well acted. I do think this is going to be the best Eddie Brock we'll ever see. I'm not even going to say that we've seen thus far, because it's not a high bar yet. But this is going to be it. Like, don't make another Venom. Don't recast Eddie Brock ever again. It's fucking Tom Hardy. There was one meme I saw on Twitter where it shows Bane, you know, because he did, for anyone, I guess, outside of this, he was also Bane in the Dark Knight trilogy. And he, you know, it says a little text, the text underneath, like, I will break you, Batman. And Batman, it shows Batman from the current DC cinematic or extended universe, and it's buff-ass Ben Affleck, and he says, bring it on, Tom Softy. And then it shows Tom Hardy at the bottom. He said, fuck that. Marvel, do you need a villain?
Aww.
I mean, Ben Affleck Batman is way bigger than the Bane and the Dark Knight trilogy, but it's also more comic booky.
Mm-hmm. That's too funny. Well, he's going to be a great Venom. As great as this Venom can be. As
good as Venom you can do on the big screen, this is it. All right, everyone. This is going to be the creme de la creme. We're not going to get anything better than this. So after this, don't ask for any more Venom if it's not Tom Hardy.
Yep. So sticking on with the movie trends, we're going to talk about something that's a little mix of everything. Mm-hmm. And that is Fandango's summer survey for 2017 for upcoming, most anticipated summer blockbusters.
So coming in first was Wonder Woman,
Woo!
Followed closely by Spider-Man Homecoming, Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Men Tell No Tales.
Was there nothing else out?
I think there were two others, but it's like, those didn't even come close. I didn't even include them in the fucking list. No. I forgot what it was. I shouldn't have even included Dead Men Tell No Tales, because I really don't think it'll do as well as the original trilogy.
Oh, no.
But it's probably not.
None of it did as well as the first one. The first one was great.
Are you sure? I think the second and third one outdid the first one.
Really?
I think we'd have to look that up. But granted, this one has to have a much smaller budget than the previous Pirates, in which they went, oh shit, we can't put that much money into this. People don't want a movie of just Jack Sparrow.
So we do have a quote here from Fandango managing editor Eric Davis, who said, "It's a thrill to see Wonder Woman command the top spot on our most anticipated summer movies list. Early screening reactions are positive, with audiences responding favorably to the film's exciting blend of action, adventure, humor, and romance. Plus, fans have been waiting their entire lives to see a live-action Wonder Woman movie, and the film's breakout star, Gal Gadot, makes it all worth the wait." End quote. I couldn't agree more, sir.
Very much agreed. Wonder Woman is set to release, of course, on June 2nd. Cannot wait. But the comment I've been seeing constantly on the internet, and this couples with the estimated opening of $68.2 million, is that we'll imagine how much better it would have done if DC had properly marketed it. Of course, it's Warner Brothers, not DC. You know, at the end of the deal, it's like, what the fuck, man? What did I do?
So, does the people who commenting, do they drink Dr. Pepper? Clearly not.
Clearly not,
Clearly
no.
not. Do they watch NASCAR?
Nope, they don't watch NASCAR.
Clearly not. What else was there?
Cold Stone?
Cold Stone?
No, they don't eat Cold Stone.
They must not eat ice cream. No. Do they watch TV at all? No?
No, they don't watch television. They've never been... They're not seeing pictures from New York right now from Times Square?
Times Square.
Where they have the ginormous billboards for Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
No, they're ignoring that. They're ignoring the bus signs. They're not reading comics either, because if you open that comic right there, Kelly, Flash, on the inside cover, you're going to see a giant Wonder Woman ad.
Okay, not reading those.
So they're not reading those either.
Clearly.
But they're saying they're not seeing ads on Twitter or Facebook. They're not showing sponsored ads, which they are, but they're saying they're not.
So they don't use Twitter or Facebook, clearly.
But they do, because that's where they're whining about this.
No, I mean, but they just used it that once.
Oh, okay.
So what we need to do is either hijack their Facebook to show only those things, or send letters to their house. Clearly, that's the only form of marketing that they understand.
Apparently, I don't know where this is all. I think the best example I saw was, I think it started on probably blogger sites where people started talking about how it's not being marketed enough, and then on Twitter, it eventually leaked onto there, and that's where people are immediate to be like, nope, this is it. Here you go. Someone screenshotted like all of the marketing materials into one image, and they're like, yeah, they're really not marketing this, and just put it all up there. It's so crazy that no matter how well this movie does, they're always going to say, it could have done way better if. Forever, that's going to be the thing now, because they're forever fighting an uphill battle.
Of course. They will say that about DC things forever. Of course, if it's Marvel, and I say, oh, they would have done way better if they made a decent movie.
Yes.
Then they're all like, no, it was really good.
It was good. I liked it. I thought it was fun. I thought it was
great.
A fun time.
But then if I say, oh, but I liked the movie, like, but it wasn't good. I love getting into DC versus Marvel movies arguments at work.
I like doing that on, I do like doing that at work because eventually they either like just stop or give up or whatever, but like, oh fuck, I'm not going to argue with Daniel all day because I will just keep going.
I know you will. I know you will. They stop arguing with me too at a certain point. They're like, all right.
But on Facebook, it's my favorite because I'll just put up like whatever. I just put up a thing today. I just screenshotted, I don't know how you pronounce his name, Stepan Sajak. He's about to do the Aquaman artwork, and we're picking up that run because I love his art. And he recently shared the Spider-Man Homecoming poster, and he's like, this is fucking real? It looks like someone photoshopped this that came straight out of high school and saw a Star Wars poster. And I'm like, yeah, he's right. Pay me $300. I'll Photoshop something better. Because I know I'm going to just get bombarded with just all this shit from all of my Marvel friends. And they all they're starting not to take the bait as easily anymore. They're starting to just scroll past it instead of like, no, I'm going to tell him. But now they know that, yeah, he's just going to keep trolling.
I still say you can't troll our son. You're going to have to like calm down before he gets here.
Well, they're taking the fun out of it. They're not giving me the attention on Facebook.
Oy.
It's so much fun though. It is a lot of fun. There was one thing that I was going to tweet, and it's a simple fact, and I already told Maceo, Matt, and Eric about it. I haven't done it yet, but it's just a very simple, even if it's just a fact, someone would jump on it, right? It is going to be, when I was a child, Nick Fury was white. That is it. Just a fact of life, and it's not a negative or a positive. It is just a thing. And that alone will be like, you motherfucker. Like, it'll just be.
I can't. We have to.
That's going to be a fun day.
I can't. Boy, it's okay, Leo. Mommy loves you.
That's my level of troll right now, listeners. It's incredible. Although I get trolled later. We're going to talk about how I get trolled in like 2 news bits here.
So keeping up with some DC movies, director Doug Liman has left the live-action Justice League Dark project over, quote, scheduling issues.
Not your typical creative differences that we've gotten in the past, but instead evidence is actually supporting this because Lionsgate recently greenlit Chaos Walking, which Liman is set to direct on. Bigger paycheck.
I guess.
Or a more favored project.
Whatever. So you know who they should get?
Guillermo del Toro. So that he can drop out halfway?
Yeah. What's he doing? He's not doing Hellboy anymore.
He doesn't need to do anything. He's a producer.
Oh.
The guy makes money.
Sits and collects money. So Warner Brothers is now looking into Andres Muschietti. Did I say that right? I was close. For the film, who recently directed the It remake.
Stephen King's It. So a more horror spin maybe on Justice League Dark? Maybe not. I mean, I'm sure the director can direct something other than scary movies.
No, that's all he can do.
So John Constantine, we've got the lineup, Kelly. Let me know if you approve.
All right.
We've got John Constantine, Swamp Thing, Deadman, Zatanna, and Etrigan the Demon as the team for the film, and it will tie in to the DC Extended Universe.
Oh. Well, Swamp Thing's cool.
Absolutely.
If we give him giant wings. Deadman's okay. I don't got problems with him. Etrigan's awesome.
Yes,
love me some Etrigan. Zatanna, nah. Which John Constantine is this?
We don't know yet. They haven't cast him yet.
Well, it better be TV Constantine or no dice movie.
What if they cast Sting himself as Constantine?
Then I would see it. Then I would be okay.
Like literally Constantine himself.
But can he do terrible acting like Aerosmith from the Aerosmith ride?
Yes.
Can you grab my black Les Paul? Did you hear they edited out his obscene...
His two in the pink and one in the Sting?
His obscene hand gesture.
Yes, I've seen. Last time Clayton and Riggs were down, we were watching it. We're like, his hand's different now, and yeah, they digitally manipulated and copied a finger so that he wasn't doing that sign. No one caught it back then.
Nobody got it. Nobody knew what it was. Nobody talked about sex back then.
We caught every time we went on the ride. We're like, he's two in the pink and one in the Sting every fucking time.
Well, yeah, I saw it too, and that's probably why he did it. But nobody talked about sex back then, so the people recording it were just like, yeah, he cool, man.
It's rock and roll.
The best part is when kids go on it and they'll see it and they'll be like, yeah, Mom, cool.
It looks like a Sailor Moon thing when you put it over your head there.
It does. Like,
that needs to be the new Sailor Moon. The sixth member, whatever, seventh member.
Well, how many planets are there? They
9?
count Pluto. So
9 planets, is
so
it?
That'd be the
12?
10th member. Oh, wait, but then you had like the Sailor Suns or something, Sailor Stars or...
No, I want it to be that band member himself as the...
he is actually one of them? Okay.
So good lineup, I think. Constantine, Swamp Thing, and Etrigan, I think, are the two that I'm most excited to see on the big screen. A huge budgeted film, hopefully. Bringing those characters to life. That is super fucking exciting, especially fucking Etrigan.
Hopefully they use costumes like they did with Killer Croc as opposed to all CG.
Hopefully, although we talked about it before, that Killer Croc is actually like a normal sized human, but Etrigan and Swamp Thing are actually larger characters. So
you could make Etrigan just a really big man.
Maybe. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what they do. So here is where life has trolled me, Kelly. But it's also a bit of a tragedy and something that immediately put a spin on all of these Zack Snyder haters on Twitter, on Tumblr, on review sites.
So I want to start by saying you said trolled and tragedy, which is exactly what your trolls do to all of us, but
okay,
that's fine. Continue.
So it is terrible news, but not something that is affecting Justice League in quite the way that most people think it is. And that is that director Zack Snyder and producer Deborah Snyder have stepped down from finishing reshoots and post-production work on Justice League following Zack's daughter's suicide from 2 months ago.
Autumn Snyder's suicide was only made public during the announcement that he'd be stepping back.
So via The Hollywood Reporter, Snyder said, quote, "In my mind, I thought it was a cathartic thing to go back to work, to just bury myself, and see if that was the way through it. Here's the thing, I never planned to make this public. I thought it would just be in the family, a private matter, our private sorrow that we would deal with. When it became obvious that I need to take a break, I knew that there would be narratives created on the internet. They'll do what they do. The truth is, I'm past caring about that kind of thing now. I want the movie to be amazing, and I'm a fan, but that all pales pretty quickly in comparison. I know the fans are going to be worried about the movie, but there are 7 other kids that need me. In the end, it's just a movie. It's a great movie, but it's just a movie." End quote.
Warner Brothers initially wanted to delay the release of the movie, but Zack and Deborah agreed that the film should continue on schedule.
So before we move on to who is taking the reins of Justice League, it wasn't made public until this week that his daughter had committed suicide 2 months ago. And after he did, I think what many maybe of us would have done, or at least I would have tried to do, is to work through the pain. After 2 months of doing the reshoots and the work on Justice League, he realized he couldn't do it. He couldn't just simply work through it. So he had to, step back. And the reshoots and the post-production work are still his vision. It's someone carrying out what he wants to do with the movie. This is not going to be a completely different movie because he's stepping down.
Right.
And the fact that he had to say why he was stepping down is evidence of how much hate and personal attacks the man gets on a daily basis over fucking superhero movies. Over movies, this isn't a politician. This isn't the leader of any country. This isn't a terrorist. It's a guy that makes goddamn movies that gets hate on all the time because people don't like the movies that he's made. Fuck off then. Don't watch Justice League. And I tell this to my Facebook friends all the time. Whenever the recent thing I said I didn't like Guardians of the Galaxy 2. Well, Batman v Superman wasn't very good. And I had this shit. And I'm like, then don't fucking watch Justice League. Don't watch the Justice League movie. Well, I want to still watch it. I guess I'm a mass. It's like, no. Don't watch the movie, dude. If you don't like Batman v Superman, if you didn't like Man of Steel, there are zero reasons for you to watch Justice League. We like those movies. We're going to watch Justice League. If you shit on his movies, you don't need to go see the ones that are coming out. It makes no fucking sense. Do you think I'm going to see the next Avengers? Do you think I'm going to see the next Ant-Man? I'm not going to see those. Why? Because I didn't like the previous one. I'm not going to go online and personally attack the director, tag him in every one of my fucking tweets, all because of a fucking movie. Fuck yourself if you do that. And it's because of people like you that he had to say why he's stepping down. And understand that this is not going to be a different movie because of this new director. This is still going to be his vision. And unfortunately, however Justice League is received, good or bad, he's either going to be blamed for it not being good, or the new director is going to get credit for it being a good movie. And understand that now. But it doesn't matter, because these critics aren't going to listen to this. These haters aren't going to listen to this. And they just want their personal narrative to play out. And it's fucking frustrating. Frustrating for me as well, because I see it all goddamn day on Twitter, on the internet, when I'm out, when I'm talking to friends, when I'm talking to people.
I don't even know that I can follow that up. That was too good. That was dead on, and of course our hearts and our sympathies go out to the Snyder family for what happened. And it's an absolute shame that he had to say, this is what happened. I wish he could have just kept it to himself, but exactly like he said, people were going to make up their own stuff if he didn't. He
got fired. Everything would have come out. You wouldn't have heard it would have just continued. It would have spiraled continuously out of control. And now all of the critics online like Dan Slott, and we like his work, but he tweets one of three things. He either tweets about Trump, he tweets about Zack Snyder's movies, or he tweets about Spider-Man never getting married again. Those are the three things he talks about all the time. And so now, since this news broke out, he has not mentioned Batman v Superman once. And critics like Lindsay Ellis, who used to be on That Guy with the Glasses, who used to be That Girl with the Glasses, she was constantly talking about hating the Snyderverse, hating Zack Snyder for the movies he's done. He said that the way Batman v Superman came out, and the fact that they used the Martha moms in this way, he said Zack Snyder must hate his mom. That's what she said. And people immediately screenshotted that and spammed her completely with this. Like, do you feel better now? Like, is this what you wanted? Are you going to continue the hate over it? And of course, they play the victim all of a sudden, just like the reviewers did for Wonder Woman. They trashed Zack Snyder in the Wonder Woman positive reviews. The fans come out and defend the Zack Snyder movies, and then they say, why are you making this review about Zack Snyder instead of Patty Jenkins? It's just such a fucking weird, frustrating, contorted ugliness that all of these fans, people that are liking the movies, that are already fighting this uphill battle, have to deal with yet again. And now the movie creators have to create, and any little thing that is a positive, they'll immediately twist into a negative. Wonder Woman's expected 68 points. Well, no, they would have made way more if this happened. Zack Snyder stepping down, and this is why.
So the director who will be taking over and finishing out the rest of Snyder's vision is upcoming Batgirl director Joey Whedon.
And that's where I get frustrated. But I'm not personally tweeting right at Joseph Whedon, and saying, hey, fuck you, you're going to ruin Justice League, you're going to somehow ruin it. I'm just going to say to you guys, I hope the damage is so minimal to what he shoots. Because I've seen Avengers 2, and I've said it in the past, the only thing I've enjoyed from Joe Whedon is Dr. Horrible's sing-along blog. And that is it. Everything else, I am not a fan. I'm not a fan of Joe Whedon, but this is just the post-production. This is just reshoots. He can only do so much damage. I think overall it's going to be okay. And as people have said, theoretically, he is only finishing his vision. He is not rewriting the movie. That's not going to happen. He's not redoing scenes completely. There's a schedule to these reshoots. There's a schedule and a budget already for these things. He's just there to carry it out and complete it.
We do have a great tweet here from @Fincherism, who said...
Yeah, make sure to follow @Fincherism on Twitter.
Who said, quote, I just can't stop thinking about the fact that Zack had to even consider what bloggers would say if he didn't make this news public. That's how sick these people are. You hate him just because he made a movie you didn't like. You personally attack him over that. You make gross assumptions about his personal life, and now you want to be sympathetic when he's forced to reveal this tragedy? Fuck you. He shouldn't have to think about what narrative you'll spin because you have such a disdain towards him for no reason. End quote.
For those of us that are going to watch Justice League, because we did enjoy the previous movies, it releases this year, November 17th. And once again, our thoughts do go with the Snyder family. Send them a supportive tweet. Something different for him for once. Something positive that he can read. And remember that there are various organizations out there for people who are struggling with depression and suicide. If you follow Zack Snyder, you'll see he recently tweeted an excellent organization that with a link, and you can get in contact with help that might end up saving your life. But aside from that, once again, spread positivity, spread support.
With this news, guys, we are going to take a very short break. It only seemed like 5 seconds for you, but it'll be much longer for us. We're going to come back. We're going to have our Patreon shoutouts, our Flash review, and of course, the long-awaited Alien Covenant review at the end of the show.
In episode number 240, I'm just kidding with you guys. Welcome back from the break. We've got our Patreon shoutouts, the Flash number 22, and the Alien Covenant review coming right up and your way. We apologize for the break, but we ended up going a little bit longer than we expected on the news, and we didn't exactly have the extra time like we usually do, so we had to take a break. I think it's like the second time we've ever done it in the whole show's history, but the important thing is the episode will release on time, and here's the rest of the show.
So exactly like you said, jumping into our Patreon shoutouts, we have 3 this week.
Yes, yes, our Patreon goal is ever closer. We're actually at 41 out of 50 towards goal number 3, which would have us essentially break even for the show's upload every single month.
At what point do they start supporting us with diapers and formula? Is that a goal at one point?
Knowing our luck, the baby would be allergic to all the diapers. Every single one.
We're going to have to use cloth diapers. You're going to have to washing that shit.
Fucking disgusting. So yeah, as you mentioned, 3 Patreon shoutouts this week. We've got Brian on Twitter at BrianShaup1, Christian on Twitter at RocketMan_131, and the return of Christopher on Twitter at TheIrishOnFire.
We have a great quote here from Brian who said, "I am a proud supporter of the best podcast out there. If you love comics or pop culture, give them a shot."
Thank you so much,
That's
Brian.
Wonderful.
I mean, that is such a great thing to say. And huge thanks. I don't know if, we're clearly not the best podcast out there.
No. Shh. We're the best. Guys, this is it. Don't go looking for another. This is the top of the tier.
Top of the tier for podcasts with Daniel and Kelly.
Yes.
With Emperor and Darth Vader Daniel.
Yes.
The best podcast with a baby on the way.
Yes.
With a Leo on the way, more specifically, just to be safe.
A Super Saiyan Raptor baby.
That's correct. The best podcast with a Super Saiyan Raptor baby in Orlando. We can put that on the website as well. No, huge thanks, Brian. Really, it's awesome when we hear kind words like that and the kind support. It's exactly that keeps us going every single week. Christian, again, at RocketMan_131. He recently tweeted a holy image of Patty Jenkins to Patty Jenkins saying, quote, "Glad to include you on the team along with Zach. Can't wait to see Wonder Woman," end quote.
Neither can we.
That's a reference to the other meme of Zack Snyder as Christ. Like they photoshopped his face on various Jesus pictures, and it's just him as like the creator of the DC universe. It's pretty awesome.
And finally, from Christopher, again at The Irish on Fire, welcome back to our Patreon shoutouts to the Patreon family. And he is also a huge supporter of Alterna Comics.
So because of all of you, we are that much closer to goal number 3. Huge thanks to all of you for supporting the podcast, for tuning in, and for listening. If you too would like your monthly shout out for as little as $1 a month, that equals out to about 25 cents an episode. If you feel like you're getting 25 cents worth of entertainment each week, definitely back our podcast, back our Patreon at patreon.com/thereasonsimBroke.
And of course, our podcast will always be free. The best thing you can do for us is let your friends know, talk to us on Twitter, leave us reviews on iTunes or wherever you listen to us. The best podcast with Daniel and Kelly.
That's correct.
Out there.
Huge thanks again, can't say it enough, and also to decalavenue.com for the help at the $5 decal reward tier. If you go to patreon.com/thereasonsimBroke, you can see all of the different perks for becoming a Patreon backer.
And another great perk for Patreon backers this month. We've mentioned the last few episodes, but we are running a Patreon backer contest.
If you are a backer at any level, you qualify to win the Breisner Award-winning A Dark Knight by Paul Dini, which won for Best Reality-Based Story, or The Mighty Thor Volume 1, Thunder in Her Veins, which won for Best Colorist. At whatever level you back us on, you already are entered automatically to win one of these 2 trade paperbacks, or in the Dark Knight's case, a hardcover, and we will notify the winner right at the beginning of June, but the contest does end on June 1st, so you still have a little bit of time to back us on Patreon if you want to be a part of this contest.
Just a few more days. Is it a coincidence that it ends on Wonder Woman Day?
Yeah, because we're not really doing a Wonder Woman giveaway. Although that would have been smart, but I don't think we had anything Wonder Woman related that went up for a Breisner Award this... I'm sorry, Breisner Awards this year.
We have too many award shows, guys. Sorry. Can't keep all the names straight.
On to our comic book highlight for the week.
Like we said in the very beginning, this is Flash number 22. It is number 4 of 4 of The Button. Can you play Pussycat Dolls The Button just once for me?
This is written by Joshua Williamson, with art by Howard Porter, and colors by Hi-Fi.
Opens again with them zooming through the Speed Force on his little speedy treadmill, which they could have made look a little cooler. Can I just throw that out?
It's kind of hard to... You can't change the look of the cosmic treadmill.
Okay, I'm sorry. Batman's grapple hooked on there.
That's the part that doesn't make sense to me. But it's a Batman. Like, he probably knew that would work already. He studied the treadmill. This is a spoiler review of this comic book highlight. So yes, as they're chasing Reverse Flash and almost catching up to him, Batman is. I don't know about Flash, but Batman's about to fucking headlock, arm lock this fucking guy, break his arm, break his leg, stop him from going
break
wherever.
Break his arm, break his leg.
Reverse Flash is trying to get to the energy, the source of the energy for the Watchman button, the Comedian's button. And right as they're getting close to him, there's a giant blue lightning bolt that interrupts all 3 of them. And this is where they kind of lose track and end up losing themselves as far as catching up to Reverse Flash. And he ends up getting to the very end and confronts this energy that is responsible for the button. And they try to make it somewhat clear that it's Dr. Manhattan, but it still isn't to me. When you see it, it's like there's this blue swirl, and I've never seen Dr. Manhattan in any capacity form in that way. He just pops into existence. And that's kind of this blue energy that Thawne is seeing. And he just says, I'm sorry, I didn't know, I don't want to die, and he gets blasted halfway, and that's where we get to the beginning of the Button Part 1. So you see how he dies, but you don't really know what he got killed by.
Meanwhile, we have Batman and the Flash in the Speed Force, whatever the hell that is, and they're hearing voices, and Batman's just like, go towards the voice, and he's like, no, we'll get lost forever, and Batman's like, just fucking go towards the voice. And then out of the lightning, the clouds, whatever they are, comes Jay Garrick, and I don't trust him. Kill him.
You didn't trust him in this?
No.
Much like the Kid Flash from DC Rebirth, that one-shot special almost a year ago now, this is a Jay Garrick that remembers the Flash, but Flash doesn't quite remember him either. Or the other way around. So Flash is trying to remember who he is, and he still can't. And eventually, Jay Garrick pops back into the Speed Force, which was different than when it happened in Rebirth, because as Flash remembered who Wally West was, he was able to keep him in that universe, and now he's on the Titans. But the same doesn't happen for Jay Garrick, and instead he's able to save both Batman and the Flash, and then he pops back into that Speed Force, but there is a giant blue light that kind of sucks him back in there. So maybe that is this entity who, again, they're making us think that it's Manhattan, but this is that entity bringing him right back into wherever he was, whatever he escaped from.
And thankfully, Jay saved Batman and Flash, and now they're back in their own timeline, in the Batcave, back again to the beginning, where it all started.
And there's this page layout that's very much like what they did in Watchmen, where it's 9 blocks, 9 comic book blocks, but instead it's Batman as he sees the bat signal light up. And he's remembering his father's words of, don't be Batman, be the father to your son that I could never be. And as the bat signal goes up, he's still standing there, and finally Alfred walks up to him and says, Sir, are you going to answer that? and he continues standing there and he doesn't move. So it's almost a hint of whatever story we're going to get from this Watchmen universe. Is Bruce legitimately thinking of hanging up the cape and cowl? Will he stop to raise his son as his father would have wished? If anyone is going to stop him from being Batman, it's going to be his father or Andra Belmont from Mask of the Phantasm.
This is true, but do you think Damian would let him stop being Batman?
Probably not. It would be a whole nother breakthrough to get to Damian, to convince him to let's just have a somewhat normal life, or the life that we would have wanted, I guess, if their parents were never killed.
The life that Damian, well, okay, one, if his parents were never killed and he never became Batman, then he never would have had Damian.
Very true.
Boom.
Sure.
Okay, sorry. Anyway, continuing on. And Damian's whole relationship with his father stems off being Batman and Robin.
Yeah.
And I could go on about this forever. We don't have time for that, guys. But I don't... Batman may consider it. We may see it in an issue where he's just like, no, Damian, like, we need to be... And Damian's gonna be like, are you fucking stupid? Like, this is what we do. And Batman, through being Batman, taught Damian not to be such an asshole.
Yeah.
He doesn't kill people anymore. He subdues them, and then he's like, this is stupid that I can't kill. But that's... Him being Batman is making Damian a better person. Exactly
right. And even now, it seems like Damian has accepted this form of partnership that he has with Batman of not killing. And what we even saw that in the animated Teen Titans movie where Deathstroke, I know it's not in continuity with the comics, but it is inspired by it, in which Deathstroke calls him weak for not killing, and Damian says, no, it's actually stronger to not kill and to subdue you as opposed to just firing, pulling the trigger and firing a shot. So it was really, that argument will forever be in the Batman mythos, and fans will always talk about it with non-fans or fans among themselves. One thing I am wondering, when Batman met Thomas Wayne, Batman from Flashpoint, there was this peace among Batman, right, where he saw that his son was alive. Did sanity return to him for a brief moment, seeing his son alive again?
I think so.
Now, the question is, I don't know if we're going to see it, and we probably won't, if Martha Wayne from the Flashpoint universe, the Joker, had seen his son alive as well, even though he is Batman, and she did essentially commit or kill herself by freaking out in the fact that he was Batman in this other universe, but would sanity have returned to both parents to see their son again?
How magical would that be? I can't even think about it because I'm going to get emotional, and I can't do that. I hope so.
A moment just like when he tells husband and wife, talking about their son, in the Flashpoint Batman, and he says he becomes like his father, but they're both almost holding each other, knowing for a moment they're both sane, sharing this moment of, we can save our son. Even though we die in this other universe, that's not important. What's important to us, and this is why we're doing what we're doing, is our son, and this is why we became this way. So, I mean, I don't know if that's ever going to happen, but I would love to see that moment play out again, but with Bruce actually there with his Flashpoint parents, knowing that they'll cease to exist because that universe, as we saw in the previous one, supposedly was getting erased again, like in Flashpoint. But just to get that magical moment again would have been incredible. Maybe we won't get it. Maybe this was enough, and maybe that one time they did it is what makes it so special. But I that's something I couldn't push away from my mind, is would both of them just be Thomas and Martha again?
So while that page, those 9 panels, were very touching and obviously lead us to a bunch of conversations, what really leads to conversations is the last page of this book.
That if we didn't have this final page, would have upset very many
Everybody.
people.
I would have been
all
upset.
The readers. And that's where we were debating at the comic shop for a while, like, are we going to see Dr. Manhattan? I mean, I know this is not going to be the fight that we were promised. We know that's going to be the Doomsday Clock, in which it's Superman versus Manhattan. But are we going to see him just kill off the Reverse Flash? Or that's what we were thinking, like, we're going to see at least his arm as he blasts him, but we didn't even see that. Instead, we get near the epilogue, the Watchmen button, as dropped by Reverse Flash. Who knows where it ended up, or if it ended up right in front of Watchmen. Was he really the one that killed Reverse Flash? We still don't know. I still don't think so. But he is picking up the comedian's button, and it's that big blue Dr. Manhattan hand, and it's the same dialogue from Watchmen, in which he repeats that, we're all puppets, Laurie. I'm just a puppet who can see the strings.
Dr. Manhattan, I love you so much. I still don't think he killed him, though. I don't think it was Dr. Manhattan. I get that we see the blue, but I think there's somebody else who's doing all this also, and Dr. Manhattan can just see all of it.
And that would explain that specific dialogue choice of that throwback to Watchmen of he is also a puppet on here, but who is pulling the strings in all of this? And maybe there is a larger godlike entity than Dr. Manhattan, who he himself has said, I am a creation of humans, but I can see throughout time. So I am to you, by definition to you guys, a god, but I'm just a puppet like all of you. It's pretty awesome.
What if it's Rorschach, and when he got blown up by Dr. Manhattan, he got, like, magic powers?
That's one thing that people are asking. Are we going to see, like, the comedian and Rorschach?
No, they all died.
Yeah, I think it's only Manhattan that can, he's the only one that came into the DC universe. Why would he bring back the rest of the Watchmen, right? So I think it's just going to be Manhattan in the DC universe. They're not going to go all out and do a team up of Rorschach and Batman or anything like that. They're going to handle it very subtly with the Watchmen. And it's because it is such a grand work in the world of comics.
I'd love to see Damian run Rorschach.
Imagine that fucking conflict.
Or Alfred. Somebody would make him take a bath.
And the final pages are, of course, the Doomsday Clock reveal that we're going to get by Jeff Johns, Brad Anderson, and Gary Frank coming out November 2017. We talked about it last week. And the reason why Jeff Johns leaked it ahead of time before this book released is because otherwise Newsarama, Bleeding Cool, and all of them would have broken this story and would have taken awful pictures of that marketing instead of him controlling that marketing and saying, here's an official image of Doomsday Clock, and here's what it's about as far as I can tell you before we get to November. So that's what got people talking. By the time they got to this, they're like, oh, this all makes sense. And boom, everything is controlled. Everyone knows what Doomsday Clock is. There's no questions. That's how you market an upcoming event.
Overall, I thought these 4 issues were great. They brought me high, they brought me low, they made me cry.
It's everything you could ask for out of a weekly, this is the first bit of Watchmen, this is the continuation of DC Rebirth. As I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, I think it was part 3 or part 2, in which he does have that interaction with Thomas Wayne, that made all of this worth it. Like, this could have been a $25 issue of just that one, and I would have been like, this is amazing, this is perfect. All of it made it worth it. So great 4-part series. And I can't wait for the Doomsday Clock.
And with that, we do wrap up our normal podcast, our first part of the podcast, our spoiler-free except for the comic book podcast.
And now we bring you the spoiler review of Alien Covenant. If you haven't seen Covenant yet and you want to stay without the spoilers, this is where we leave off. Thank you so much for tuning in to the podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show and you found something that you learned or enjoyed or laughed at. And we'll see you next week. Otherwise, here's our review of Alien Covenant.
So as we mentioned in the beginning, this was directed by Ridley Scott, who's also done Blade Runner and Alien.
It stars Michael Fassbender from X-Men First Class and also seen in Prometheus, Catherine Watterson from Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, and Billy Crudup, who plays Dr. Manhattan in the Watchmen film.
Yes. The way we're going to format this review is we're going to talk about 4 different aspects. We're going to talk about the story, the acting, the directing, and the special effects, and then we'll give it an overall rating of a 1 through 5. Should we do facehuggers?
5 facehuggers, sure.
So let's start off with the story.
It begins with what appears to be colonists that are on their way to a planet that they know is viable for life, or at least suited for their life. And there's an android on board, I believe his name was Walter, who is overseeing all of the colonists because he doesn't need to sleep, and they're awakened by a solar flare. And this solar flare damages the ship, brings down power to a part of it, and that's how he recharges. They put out like this giant solar panel, essentially.
They call it a fin. It looks like a big old sail.
Yeah, but it's like a solar panel, and I'm sure they use it now, but it's ginormous on this thing. And as they're charging, there's this solar flare that damages it, so he needs to awaken all of the colonists so that they can repair the sail.
The crew members.
Exactly. So they are all awakened. The captain of the ship, though, his cryo-sleep chamber, I don't know what they call him in the Alien universe, malfunctions, and he ends up burning alive inside his chamber. So the next person in command that takes over, which is Billy Crudup's character, is the one who's telling everyone, okay, well, let's fix the sails, let's get this up and running, and they do. But as they're doing it, they pick up a signal from a closer planet, which is where this movie takes place, of a song, a human song that they all recognize. So they're like, maybe there's life on here. They scan it, and Walter says, this is viable for life. but it's not the one we were going for. But this one does seem to be more suited to us than even the other one that we were heading towards. And the crew, apprehensive of what happened to the captain, they don't want to go back into their chambers. So they all decide, I guess the captain, Billy Crudup, to make them all happy, says, you know what, fine, let's just go to this planet instead and go off mission. And maybe this will end up being a better planet for us. As opposed to, no, you fucking babies, get back in your chambers. We're going to go to the original planet we wanted, and if we want to visit this later, we can discover it later. Right now, the plan is to live. I don't care if you're scared about being it. Don't fucking go to sleep then. I'm going to sleep. Let's go to that planet. Good night. That's what he should have done.
And that's what the second in command, it's the captain's wife. That's what she says. She's like, no, we've already vetted this other planet. This is where we need to go. Mm-hmm. And the new captain in charge, he's like, but this is only like a week out of the way. We'll go and check out. It might be even better.
So they arrive on the planet.
And it's not better. They send a crew down through this hydrogen storm thing where the up there spaceship can't really hear the down there spaceship because that just adds to it.
Yes.
And they go and they're wandering through and doing all this stuff and run into these spore things, which release this black stuff into the air.
Like living black spores.
Yes, yeah. Which makes aliens grow in your belly.
Yeah, it goes in through your nostrils or through your ears. And that's when you're not a xenomorph, but they call them neomorphs. So it's like a different species, a different evolution to the xenomorph species. As we'll know later on where the ones from the main movies come from. But these also burst out from the body. But they do look different. They are kind of almost like little xenomorphs, but they're all white. They're not the little worm things from the original movies.
They kind of reminded me of Pale Man from Pan's Labyrinth.
A little bit, yeah, a little bit. Without without the eyes on the hands, everything else, not as wrinkly, but like almost skinny, exactly like the Pale Man. No eyes, big mouth. And they are obviously not nice. They're killing off other crew members, and 2 of them get infected. So as they're going back to the ship, back to the shuttle that would take them back, that shuttle ends up exploding from one of the crew members firing off trying to kill this neomorph and accidentally hitting the gas tanks. So the crew is essentially stuck on this planet with no contact to the mothership.
And then, of course, the other guy who was infected with the neomorph then bursts from his back, this creepy-ass neomorph, and starts attacking them in the night.
Well, that's the guy that threw up the neomorph. The first guy with the back was inside that ship, and that's what she was trying to kill. But as they're trying to take the other guy back into that shuttle, he throws up the alien, or it bursts out of his neck and out. It's almost like a Dead Space type of transformation, oddly enough. But that second one is attacking the crew members, and it gets spooked off by what is David from Prometheus. Now, he is the android from that first movie. He fires off a flare, the neomorphs freak out and run off into the woods, and he tells them, come with me, and explains to them that he was the character, he's the android from the very first Prometheus movie.
And then he talks about, I never saw Prometheus, so maybe I'm missing a lot of things, but some lady he was on a ship with, and then she died on the way down. And then he had been stuck there for 10 years, I think he had said.
He explains to the crew that they accidentally released a bioweapon onto the the engineer's planet. The way that Prometheus ended is, this android was evil, but they needed each other's help when they survived at the very end of Prometheus to get to the ship and fly off and leave the planet. And he was just ahead at that point. So at some point between the movies, she ended up repairing him, and he says that I was very grateful of that, and I loved her, and I cared for her, even though I'm an android. I've kind of learned that there are emotions to my build. But the plan from Prometheus was to visit the engineer's planet and make contact with them, this species that could have helped humans in the future. But what we find out in Covenant is that David ended up unleashing that bioweapon purposefully and killing off this entire population of engineers on this planet with that same black goo that we saw in Prometheus. And that's why this whole city is just barren and empty, and there's these bodies of engineers kind of encrusted into statues type of thing. And that's kind of where the back and forth chess match between the two androids goes, because we have Walter, and they're both played by Michael Fassbender. Walter, who is a more advanced model and understands that yes, humans aren't perfect, but the androids aren't either. And On the other end, David is saying we need to eradicate humans because they're a species that is not worthy of existing.
And they reveal that little by little throughout, the movie. You have scenes where a teenager, adult neomorph comes in and eats one of the people, and David's just like, oh, cool, let him do his thing. And I'm like, no, kill it. So you kind of start to see that he's evil there, and then you're getting into his workshop, and you see all these creepy things that he's dissected, and then you find out that he actually killed what's-her-name as opposed to her dying.
Right, from Prometheus.
Right. And then, of course, he takes the captain down to his creepy basement, and he's like, oh, cool, look inside this little pod thing that just opened up. It's okay, it won't hurt you.
It's the fucking eggs from Alien.
Yes.
So what this story tells us at this point, he's got all the different sketches and all the different dissected different neomorphs and what appear to be face huggers as well, and he has created what he believes the perfect species, and that's the current, or at least the incarnation right before what we see in Alien, in this one. So you have the egg exactly like the movie. You have the face hugger. It goes on Billy Crudup. And then out of his body, within like an hour or two, bursts the first alien from this new string that David has created. So he's thrilled to see his creation come to life. And this, I guess it is a xenomorph, but it's not a worm like in the previous movies that kind of scatters off and turns into a xenomorph in 2 or 3 days. Instead, it has a complete little body. It's like a tiny xenomorph. And David raises his hands, and the little xenomorph raises his little hands too. It's pretty. That's a kind of a funny scene. But these are like faster xenomorphs as far as how they develop.
So then they finally get in contact with the mothership. They're coming down to save them. We have 2 xenomorphs running around. Was it 2? I felt like it was 2.
Yes. There's a second one at the end after David implants a new human with it.
Oh, that's right. So we have 1 xenomorph running around. They get on the ship. The xenomorph, of course, jumps on the ship too. And then the lady captain, who's the captain now because, of course, the old captain died, is like, motherfucker, blows him up. He's gone.
Mm-hmm.
And then they get back to the ship. Oh, I'm sorry. There was a big fight between Walter and David. And they're fighting. And Walter's up there, and he's like, I'm gonna kill you, motherfucker. And then it stops. It cuts.
Yeah, you just see a shot of the evil android David grabbing a knife as he's pinned down by Walter, and Walter has a stone in his hand, so you don't know who won. Did the knife end up overdoing the other android, or did he bring down the stone and kill?
Scissor or rock win?
Pretty much. So we don't know which android it is, but if you follow any movie at all, for the story to progress, it has to be an evil alien. Otherwise, there's no conflict at the very end. And with these alien movies, there seems to always be an extra something, even after the final battle. So yes, it comes to reveal that the evil android David was actually the one who made it on board. And while he was supposedly caring for one of the humans and his wound on his face, he implanted another virus or another little spore, but made from the xenomorph string, and puts it into him. So later on, you find his dead carcass and then the blood trail. So you figure out that there is a xenomorph on this ship.
So then the xenomorph goes around killing everybody. People in the shower having sex. He just kills them. And then, of course, our heroes have to go and try and stop the xenomorph. And there's, again, a big battle in a machinery thing.
A cargo bay, essentially. A cargo bay.
Yeah. And they get him out, and awesome, he's gone. They save the day.
What do they call that? The super suction of space?
Yes.
I know there's a word for it. They did it in Aliens as well. But he gets sucked straight out into space, and the 2 heroes win, and David apparently helped them the whole time. There was nothing there where it's okay, maybe it's for the audience to be well, maybe this android is okay, because he didn't try to screw them over. He followed all of their directions, and they killed the alien. But as he's putting them to sleep, which I believe is Tennessee and the second in command, he puts them to sleep, and they're going to be awake in several years, and they're already locked in, and she mentions something to him that only Walter would have known, and that is, are you going to help me build a cabin when we get to the planet? And David looks confused, and that's when she realizes this is not the android this is David, it's not Walter. And she's already locked into the chamber, and he's just like, shh, don't let the bed bugs bite, and hits the button to put her to sleep. And he throws up these 2 alien embryos I guess he stored them in his android body. He throws them up and puts them in the incubation along with the rest of the human embryos. And that's where he stores them. he also makes a log, and this is the last scene of the movie, where he officially makes a log in that the solar flare ended up killing all of the crew members except for Tennessee and I can't remember the character's name, but the actress's name was Catherine, and that's the last scene of the movie. So he has a whole ship of experimentation now.
Mm-hmm. Which is what he wanted. And he mentions in the movie that his whole motivation for this is he was a creation and he wanted to create something. Mm-hmm. And he was not created to create anything.
Right.
So the way he goes about that is by creating what he considers the perfect species. And I mean, if you look at him from his point of view, yeah, okay.
It is.
That's what you do. And then from our point of view, we're like, no, aliens.
They're ugly looking and weird. It's like they have acid blood. Like that is super awesome for defense.
Right. Exactly.
Super inconvenient for them. But yeah, that's essentially the story to it. It's not not too complicated. Mm-mm. It's pretty straightforward. It's not like Prometheus. I know a lot of people were lost during Prometheus, but this is more like a classic alien movie mixed a tiny bit with James Cameron's Aliens.
So there were a few things I didn't like about this story. I take that back. There were a lot of things I didn't like about this story. But my biggest one, and I know, at least I heard that this movie had YouTube shorts prior to, or yes. They posted some shorts where you found out about the crew.
With James Franco.
Right. I didn't see any of those. All I saw was all these crew members and their spouses dying and they're crying. Mm-hmm. And I didn't care.
That's the biggest problem with the movie, yes, is even without the YouTube clips, you should have some kind of attachment to the characters. You should be rooting for them. And instead I was rooting for Walter, who is the android that didn't make it till the end, you know? And that was essentially it. The humans you didn't care for, even the main two, it's like, okay, I guess they lived fine, but they weren't memorable enough for me. Unlike the others that we've seen in the previous movies, even in Prometheus, that was a more memorable character, and unfortunately we didn't see her in Alien. But none of them, of course, stand up to Sigourney Weaver, so it's just hard to see something like that. But even then, everyone's just fodder for the alien.
Yeah, I felt like they were trying to start a lot of things that they didn't proceed with. So the captain that takes over, Dr. Manhattan, that's what we'll call him, he talks a lot about his faith and how they don't want to listen to him because of his faith. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, oh, they're going to do something with this later. No, nothing. Yep. You have him giving the second in command a hard time when her husband dies. Like, oh, you just need to, like, get your head out of your ass and do this. Well, then when his wife dies, he's fucking useless. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, you were giving her a hard time. Like, somebody needs to come up to you and be like, no, you told me I had to, like, suck it up. You got to suck it up, too. We got these people to save, da-da-da, whatever. But, and then the other thing that pissed me off, and yes, I didn't have any attachments, but they only killed other people's spouses. It's not like one couple died together.
That's true.
It was always spouses that died so that somebody else could cry about it.
So that we can have, I guess, some drama in this.
But it was overkill. So first her husband dies. Okay, yep. That's sad. Then the captain's wife dies, along with Tennessee's wife, mm-hmm. along with somebody else's boyfriend. I'm sure they were boyfriends somewhere. Okay, they're dead. And then this lady died, and she was somebody else's wife. I'm like, did all you crew members get married?
Yeah, I think they're supposed to be for the repopulation of a new planet. I think that's the idea, and that's why they had a ton of couples in it.
So have one guy and a bunch of girls.
Charlie and all his angels?
Yeah, there you go.
That's not risky at all. Just one guy. If he dies, then you just fuck your whole species.
Whatever. He's gonna fuck the whole species.
Yeah, that's the biggest problem with this. It's the human interactions. They were weak. The whole motivation between Walter and David and their fight, that was the most interesting mm-hmm. part of the story, and definitely what I focused on the most. As far as the acting and the way it was shot with the directing, beautiful shots of mm-hmm. the planet, of the crew members, of the alien, of the xenomorphs. The acting, I don't think any of it was like, oh, come on, do another shot, do another read, do something else.
I thought Fassbender did really well.
Yes, he did.
For playing the two different androids. He had a lot of emotion for characters that didn't have a lot of emotion.
Exactly right.
Which was great. And like you said, we cared about the androids more than, the people. I think the actors did the best with what they could mm-hmm. with, oh, now you got to be sad because your spouse is dead. Okay, why do I care about my spouse? Nobody knows.
So the conclusion is Fassbender does not get paid enough. That is the conclusion.
Accurate. Did he get like a double paycheck for playing two people?
He better have. He better have gotten 2 paychecks out of that. What other shots can we talk about? It's Ridley Scott, so there's lingering shots for the planet, which it mirrors the lost feeling that you get from these crew members. The xenomorph shots, I don't feel like we got enough of like. There's a lot of camera movement, and I'm sure that's for the special effects. But, aside from that, it's Ridley Scott. You're going to have a well-shot film. It's going to look beautiful.
It was really pretty. The planet was really pretty. I'm sure a lot of it was CG'd, but I didn't feel like it was all CG.
It didn't look like it was all CG or green screen. It actually looked like they were on this planet, and that's the difference.
Right. It looked like when they were in the caves, they were in a set. And maybe they were in a set. Maybe he built a set. That'd be great. But
always build a set.
Yes. But it's a great change from what we've seen recently, where it's just like, all right, here's some green screen and green pillars, which are going to be things.
And the production design for David's little home, I wanted to walk through that and just look at all of the different drawings, all of the different species that he had collected and worked on. All of that, I wanted to just take a closer look at and read all of his books.
All his creepy ass books.
Yes.
Oy, no thanks.
What do you think about the special effects with them going on a CG alien as opposed to a costume prosthetic figurine or a creature?
I know why they did it, but it just didn't look good. It didn't look as good as the original one.
The little neomorphs definitely didn't look right to me. They look completely fake. It's CG. Even the shot of him killing the 2 shower people and you see like the tail coming in, it's super animated and cartoony. When
that tail came in, I'm like, are they all going to get like freaky now? What's going on here?
But it's like, even for that shot of the xenomorph like pressing his face against the glass, it's like, get a fucking puppet and film that shit, because it looks way better. Don't you still have a puppet in
storage? Like, pull that puppet out of storage.
You've got the budget. Like, just do it, Ridley Scott. Just put the puppet in there, get someone to do it, and for the close-up shots of the alien, even if it's for him, like, breaking through the glass or whatever, use that. Don't do a CG shot every single time.
Right. And that's what they did, and it just didn't feel as real. It wasn't as scary as the original one. Because I was like, there's a little CG thing running around.
Or even the giant xenomorph. I get it for like the parts where he's got to be jumping from one thing to another. Fine, but I don't know. It's just, maybe it's because I've watched the other aliens and they've been puppets. But
the CG that bothered me the most was what's his name's face in the very beginning. David's creator.
Yes, he was in the first movie as well. He was the villain of Iron Man 3. I can't remember his name right now, but yeah, it was all CG.
Ugh, it looked so bad.
As opposed to just doing makeup.
Right.
And they kind of tried to age the actor up to an in-between of what we got with Prometheus. And with a little bit of makeup work, you could have done better than the CG. And you can see, like, even when his mouth is moving and when he's blinking, it's like, that's all computerized.
I was like, am I watching Mass Effect right now? Because it looked like the Mysterious Man.
It's kind of like when you see them age them down in the Marvel movies with Kurt Russell or with Robert Downey Jr. It's like, yeah, it looks really bizarre, you know?
Right.
So you got that same effect with this movie.
But the sets looked great.
Yep, and the special effects, again, were fine. They were so-so. Not as good as puppets, and the CG didn't look amazing. So overall, I mean, taking all of this into account, I think the story, and it's only what's contained in the 2 androids, are what make this movie work and what made me overall enjoy the movie. I think it's also because I saw Prometheus that I took so much more out of it. I did want to see the full movie of them reaching the engineer's planet, but we didn't get it. Instead, they just said, well, and this is what happened.
Right.
What do you rate Alien Covenant out of 5 facehuggers?
I'm being mean this week. I'm just going to say 2.5 facehuggers.
I think that's the same thing you gave to Guardians, Volume 2?
Probably.
2.5? I'm going to go with 3.5 facehuggers out of 5.
For me, my rating is just because, like I mentioned, there were a lot of things that I feel if I had seen the other movies, yes, it would have been higher. If I had seen those shorts prior to, yes, it would have been higher. But I shouldn't have had to see those things to thoroughly enjoy those movies. Seeing those things should have been a benefit, an addition to make me enjoy it more. But, you know, like I said, besides the androids, there was no one for me to really connect to. And even then, I didn't connect to them as much as I could have.
With my rating, I am taking into account the fact that I did see Prometheus, but I'm trying to also separate myself from that. And what you can take out of this, and why I can give it a 3.5 but not 5, is the acting between Michael Fassbender and himself, and that story with the androids again is the most fascinating portion of it. You get the origin of the aliens in this movie, so even if you haven't seen the other ones, as far as these monsters here, you know where it came from and what it's doing. And then finally, the different sort of philosophy to David of, are these humans ever worthy of what they're doing? Do they shouldn't live. It should be a stronger species. It's all of that you can talk about for, among your friends after seeing Covenant, of like, is David really wrong? I mean, are these humans really worth saving if you just put yourself in David's perspective and in his eyes? And he's had, so much time with these new creatures to perfect them and create them. And it's really fascinating just thinking about the android and his older software, and battling with the newer software and their different philosophies and their mental fights throughout the middle of the movie. I think that alone is worth the ticket price. So yeah, because of that, 3.5 face huggers out of 5.
I will say one thing that we didn't mention that also brought down my rating is how overdone the aliens bursting from people were.
You've got to do it, though. If you're going to do an alien movie, you got to have the chest bursters.
Yes, I agree you should, but it was so overdone. So incredibly overdone. And I get, yes, if something bursts from your chest, that's probably how it would look. But compare the original with how it burst from the chest versus this, where it was just blood, 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 blood. I felt like there was a 15-year-old boy sitting in the room saying, no, more blood.
Well, to be fair, this is still a different string of xenomorph than what we got in Alien. Again, it doesn't come out as like this little worm. It comes out as this little xenomorph, So it's going to be a different effect when it comes from the body.
Yeah, I get that, but people throwing up blood and people blood. It felt very overdone to me. It was not scary at that point that it was bursting from its chest. It was disgusting.
Maybe it's supposed to be disgusting. I don't know.
No, but it wasn't a good disgusting. It was, who was in charge of this? Who thought this would be a good idea? It wasn't scary.
And I don't think you should, if you haven't seen it, I don't think you should go into it expecting it to be a horror film. It is more like another Prometheus, which wasn't scary, but with the xenomorph. So I think that's a good way to think of it, is if you enjoyed Prometheus, this is like a better Prometheus overall, because you finally get your xenomorphs, you get your aliens, and the plot itself is more interesting and easier to follow for everyone compared to what Prometheus did. So I think overall it is a better movie than Prometheus. It isn't what I think people wanted, which was another Aliens, but very few things are going to go back to Aliens, and this is a different director anyway, and we didn't see any connections at all to Ripley, which again, this is many years before those first movies, and he still wants to connect it with another 2 or 3 before we get to the first Alien movie. So I think overall, yeah, if you do like the franchise and you did like Prometheus, definitely give Covenant a shot.
But that will do it for us this week, guys. That was our full spoiler review of Alien Covenant. And that is it for our podcast this week.
Thank you once again for tuning in. Next week, we are going to have our thoughts on MegaCon 2017.
MegaCon 2017!
So huge thanks for tuning in this week. I'm Daniel.
And I'm Kelli.
We'll see you next time.